Isaac, are we on? Can't quite see you. We're good? All right, thank you. All right, thanks for joining us here on the live stream. We are still watching this winter storm making its way across the area. It is a blizzard warning, so we're still expecting to see winds gusting as high as 70 miles per hour at times tonight. In Topeka right now the winds are gusting 47 miles per hour. If you've been out and about, you certainly can't miss the fact that it's windy. 58 miles per hour, the latest gust in Concordia. We had a gust a little while ago in Concordia that was over to 64 miles per hour. Out in western Kansas, it's just everybody, almost the entire state, dealing with winds that are at least 40 miles per hour or higher. And again, some spots are far higher than that. Seeing gusts of 62 in Hastings now. We saw some gusts of 70 earlier in southeast Nebraska, and we're still likely to see some of those gusts around here as the night goes on. There's the live camera from Stormont Vale Manhattan campus in Manhattan, and the snow has begun there at this point. That camera is taking, it's kind of frozen, but that's what it looks like from just a couple of minutes ago. Downtown Topeka, looking at the street lights, we have snow mixing in with the rain at this point. It's not accumulating yet in Topeka, but it likely will over the next couple of hours. The snow begins to intensify. 39 degrees, the temperature officially in Topeka now, with a visibility 6 miles, and as the snow begins, the visibility will generally fall off. Live look from Concordia, from Clyde County Community College, our Capitol Federal Sky Cam there. It's been snowing for a couple of hours. It's not terribly heavy at this point, 34 degrees. And Concordia is actually just out of the blizzard warning in the winter weather advisory, which is the 1 or 2 inch accumulation most likely. So there's the look at Alma from I-70, the Can Drive camera there from your Auburn Road. Doing okay. It's just heavy rain across much of Shawnee County at this point, but the rain will intensify. Well, the snow will intensify over the next couple of hours as the colder air continues to build its way in. Areas around Marysville. It's been snowing in Marysville for a couple of hours now. I haven't gotten any reports of how much snow is on the ground, but I'm confident that Marysville already has some snow on the ground. It's also very windy, with gusts have been consistently above 40 miles per hour for a while. Again, Concordia very windy, and seeing those gusts over 60 at times. And we're seeing the changeover to snow making its way deeper into Pottawatomie County and across Nemaha County as well. This is the heavier burst of that snow making its way close to Holton and Horton shortly here, and ultimately overspreading the area. Let's check out the visibility. Gives you a good idea where the snow is the heaviest. If it's raining, your visibility is not generally quite this low, but Marysville had visibility down to 0.8 of a mile just a few minutes ago. Beatrice, Nebraska has been down to 1/4 of a mile at times as that burst of the heaviest snow continues pouring southward out of Nebraska. And you can see the darker blues here on the radar really advancing as the snow is beginning to take over. It's pretty close to on schedule here. So Topeka, again, we're changing over to some snow at this point, but the accumulations are going to take a little while before that really starts to develop. Again, it's still 39 degrees Topeka, that's falling. 8 p.m. we're showing the snow accumulation start to get to Holton and Council Grove. By 10 p.m. we have really a widespread snow and widespread strong winds across the area, gusting as high as 60 miles per hour or worse. Now by 6 a.m. the snow starts to move out of here, but what snow we have on the ground will likely blow around and drift depending on how wet the snow still is. If it's wet, it won't blow around very much, but if we have some dry powdery snow on top of it out there, that will blow and drift to make the visibility still hard to get around. 6 a.m. tomorrow, Supercast showing us as much as 1 to 3 inches of snow. We'll have a new computer model coming in around 8:30. We'll show you that as well. But looking at the temperatures behind this, the Arctic air is not going to give us any troubles this time, with temperatures only drop down at the mid-20s by the time you wake up on Wednesday morning. By Wednesday afternoon, temperatures get much warmer easily, in the 40s or even some 50s. Dan, you want to go for a while?
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. We're still going to be tracking this storm here all throughout the night. We'll have this live stream, and then, of course, later tonight at around 10 p.m. is when we are going to be seeing another full forecast there from Jeremy. And, of course, Doug Myers tomorrow morning is going to be there to cover the latest as we are sort of on the back end of that storm system. But we will be seeing those temperatures not quite as frigid from this as from the last couple of snowstorms we've had. The last two, that blizzard in January, and then of course those multiple inches of snow back on in earlier, I should say, in February, were definitely a pretty impressive combination of not just the snowfall, but also the extreme chills and winds and other scenarios there that have really made this winter season in particular a very notable one. We are luckily going to see less of a combination of those severe impacts out of this system, but the winds are definitely going to be of primary concern here. We have those gusts just right now in the upper 40s in Topeka and 35 there in Emporia. Those two spots not yet seeing any snow, or at least not a full transition to it. Here in Topeka, we are starting to see a little bit of some snowflakes falling across the region, and as we look further towards the west in the state, even areas that aren't expected to really see any snow tonight, including out further in the southwest, Garden City there and Dodge City, gusts up to around 60 miles per hour at times. So the wind is more of a statewide or even a regional wide event, because we can see further to the north on the plains there in Nebraska, gusts up into the 50s currently, and even further south and east, at least around the 30s or so. So it's definitely something that is more so paired with the snow rather than a feature of this storm, but that is still going to be a interesting combination with the snowfall here, making whiteout conditions possible, reduced visibility, probably down below a quarter of a mile for most of these overnight hours. So if we plan on traveling, especially on the highways, we really should be taking it slow. We're just trying to reschedule any sort of traveling if possible across the area. Again, a look further north there, Lincoln, Nebraska at 54, Hastings at 62, central western Nebraska has been seeing snow. They'll probably get a little bit more snow than what we're expecting to see here in northeast Kansas out of this system, and it does look like they are going to continue to see those winds and probably a little more additional snowfall throughout the overnight hours. Those totals probably getting higher than around 4 to 5 inches, but here in northeast Kansas, I think between 2 and 3 is where most of us are going to end up falling. Locally, we could see a little bit of a higher amount, maybe as much as around 4 to 5 in some spots, but with these winds and with that lower amount of snowfall, of course, with the wet ground as well, we've had almost a full 24 hours here of on and off rain throughout the area. We're not really too worried about those totals reaching too high of amounts, or even those snow drifts managing to pile up too high in many locations. And of course, those temperatures the next couple of days are definitely going to be a little bit warmer as well. We should be at least in the upper 30s tomorrow, maybe even in the 40s, and that will start to melt a pretty good amount of the snow. And then by Thursday at the latest, when we should be even higher into the middle to upper 40s, things are definitely going to be gone, and we're really not going to see evidence of this snow. Again, a big difference from the last couple of events. We had that snow on the ground for nearly a month after that blizzard in January, just because of how cold temperatures were in the wake of it, down in the negatives at times, and then highs really not getting above freezing for a few weeks. And then back in February, we had that snow falling as we had another blast of colder air moving through the region, and that kept snow on the ground for about 2 weeks in many locations. A very cold winter, and just sort of a unfortunate combination of the worst circumstances for those temperatures. It's been very, very cold by our standards. We usually don't see those negatives for more than around 2 to 3 years at a time. So to get them twice in one winter season and to have them occur both during or immediately after periods of heavy snowfall is certainly a rare combination. So it is appropriate that we are on the back end of the winter season here, officially in meteorological spring on the 1st of March. And of course, the actual season itself starts on the 20th, about a little over 2 weeks away there from the start. So it is, again, sort of par for the course that we are seeing this one last event here of another extreme, or at least fairly rare combination of conditions with winds as high as they are expected to be. Again, 60 to 70 miles per hour is where we could be peaking at. And as Jeremy has been mentioning throughout the day, that really isn't something that we have seen across the area. We've probably only had about 1 or 2 sort of localized events that have come close to that, with some gusts up to around 50 to 60 miles per hour in parts of Washington County back in 2019. But other than that, you'd be hard-pressed to really find any other sort of good analogs for what we're expecting here tonight across the area. Skycam in Topeka, again, showing that we are still seeing mostly rain, but there is a little bit of some snow mixed in there, sort of chunkier kinds of snow that you start to see when there is a transition of precipitation types from rain to snow. So on our radar, it still is mostly appearing as rainfall, but that will be switching over soon enough here, likely within the next 2 to 3 hours at most, maybe even a little bit sooner than that. Current conditions right now at around 39. Visibility is starting to drop. We're at about 6 miles here across the area, and that number is only going to go down as we head into the next couple of hours, and sustained winds are at about 24 miles per hour. But as we saw just a moment ago, we are seeing a gusts of up to around 40 to even 50 in the region at this time. We can certainly hear it here at the station. Very loud winds are really pressing against the walls there, and will likely continue to do so even as we are on air for this duration of this live stream, and of course later tonight at around 10 o'clock. 34 as we look further off west towards Concordia, Cloud County Community College camera, where snow has been falling for a good 2 hours or so now. Very light. We're really not seeing a whole lot of accumulation either, and we can thank both the winds and the wet grounds for sort of delaying that here in the area. Feels like 19 though, with those winds out of the north-northwest, sustained at 37, and the gusts now are getting up to around 50 to 60 miles per hour. We can sort of see that here as we look down towards the street under that lamppost, where that rain is definitely starting to blow almost horizontally, and well, what little snow we have as well. There's a bit of a closer look here where again you can see it's pretty much coming in at least a 45-degree angle there, and even though it is light, that is definitely something that you really don't want to be outdoors for. It can definitely be pelting the skin a bit, especially as we are starting to see that transition now to snow, where some of those snowflakes are going to be a little chunkier at first before things get a little bit lighter. What's that, Jeremy?
Power lines swinging the wind in the trees.
Oh yeah, we can see that as well. The leaves there on the trees are shaking, and yeah, some of those power lines are looking to be jumping up and down a little bit. So that is something that we really only see within severe thunderstorms. That is the kind of wind that we are expecting to see here and will continue to see across the area tonight. Very comparable to those spring and summertime thunderstorms that often have severe warnings with them. And to talk about that being close to sustained winds at times, or at least those gusts going on for a good few hours into the late overnight, is definitely something we're concerned about with regards to power outages. But we'll take a look at some of the other stats here. 4 miles of visibility right now. Again, that will also be decreasing, and yeah, sustained winds there at around 37. Here's another look at one of our KDOT cameras, Gage Boulevard in Topeka, seeing that rain and precipitation starting to affect the lens there. And again, here in Topeka, it's still mostly rain, so we're not seeing any sort of major accumulations just yet, but that is definitely going to be changing over the next couple of hours, where things are definitely going to be pretty snowy and visibility will probably be reduced. In a few hours' time, they're probably going to be very hard to end up seeing these roadways from our camera, if any at all. Maybe we'll be looking for some of the lights there out of those lampposts, but that is the sort of conditions we are expecting all across our area as we do prepare for another winter storm and another almost unprecedented really event here, as has been the case many times this winter. It just really has happened to be one of those seasons where we are managing to get within the bullseye of some of the more extreme patterns in the country. And it is interesting too, because across most of the Midwest so far this year, a lot of areas have actually been below average for snowfall, especially to the north. The Omaha area, I think, has a deficit of more than 10 inches for this time in a usual winter season. Upper parts of the plains, the Dakotas, Minnesota as well, down below their average snowfall. But Missouri and Kansas, especially northeast Kansas, have managed to see a bit of an increase here, more than around 10 inches, the opposite of what we usually see. And of course, those temperatures as well, some of the coldest we've seen in quite a couple of years. So really happening to just be within the center of where the active weather is right now in northeast Kansas, and winds currently, as we can see on the live storm tracker as they are changing a bit as the snow comes in, are really only starting to, or really only continuing to increase. Marysville there starting to tick up towards the middle to upper 40s. Concordia, again, seems to keep jumping up into the 60s now for gusts, and even further to the north where that snow has been falling across the state line in Nebraska, gusts up to around 52 in Hebron, Nebraska. Beatrice at 46 there, and a little bit of a gap in some of the readings. 48 in Manhattan is the latest, and things are definitely going to increase in terms of those wind speeds over the next couple of hours. Here's a look more at the live storm tracker where we can sort of see where that dividing line is between the rain and the snow. Again, Topeka right now is seeing a bit of a mix, but that isn't showing up just yet here on the signatures. It does take a little bit for that transition to occur, as a lot of that snow, again, at first is a bit chunkier and sort of takes many properties that you'd see in some of those heavier raindrops that we've been seeing throughout the day. But we can sort of assume that about a couple of miles, maybe 10 to 20, towards the east of where this line is between the whiter purple and the greener and yellow colors is where that snowfall boundary is located, and it will continue to sweep through the area. All of us here in northeast Kansas will end up seeing at least some snowfall out of this, and even further towards the east, towards Kansas City, and likely along I-70 throughout the night and into tomorrow morning is where we can expect that to follow a path, just like the last couple of storms we've had here in this season across northeast Kansas. So we'll go through the supercast just to sort of detail how we expect this to play out. We have the wind speeds listed here as well. We're in the 50s as that mix continues to transition here later tonight by around 9 or 8 p.m. here within the next hour, as we still are in the 60s to the west of that snowfall boundary. That's probably going to end up being a good marker here to the west, or I should say maybe as soon as we do transition fully to snow, it's when we can expect those wind gusts to start kicking up to around 60 miles per hour, that typical level that we see in severe thunderstorms. Still going to be strong though, of course, where we only have rain. Kansas City still probably going to be around 40, and Lawrence at around 50, where rain is still currently falling in the area. And even as we do start to see that snow exit some areas, or at least see a little bit of a gap here, like our model has further out west there in Clay Center and Concordia, the winds are still going to be pretty strong for at least a couple of hours afterwards. You can see here by around midnight or so that main band is out of the Concordia region, but they still have those winds gusting to over 60 miles per hour at times, and it's not really going to decrease too fast here. By daybreak tomorrow, when it's out of most of the area, we're still going to have those winds pretty strong, around 50 at least, and it probably won't be until the mid-morning hours, maybe even a few hours after that precipitation has totally ended, that we are going to resume more normal wind speeds, and we'll be on our way to a fairly average, well, a little bit below average in terms of temperatures day here in March. And with temperatures warm enough to melt that snow, it's going to be a pretty sharp transition, almost like we never even really had this storm in the first place. But a little bit of that will depend on just how much snow we do get in the area. Again, between 2 and 3 inches is our most likely area-wide forecast here. A little bit further to the north, some of our models do have places like Marysville and Hiawatha getting between 4 and 5 inches, but I do think that is going to be confined mostly to a lot of localized spots. And again, factoring in those wet grounds and that wind, which is going to be blowing and whipping around a lot of the snow, that's not going to really result in too many widespread areas of very high totals. And things might end up being a little bit on the lower end, further to the south and west, where we don't see as much of a prolonged amount of snowfall in the area. They might only end up being somewhere within that sort of 1 to 2 inch range, with a little bit more so of the rain being longer lasting than the snowfall in many of those areas. But for all of us, a little bit of snow at the very least is what we can expect here in the region, and it doesn't look like any of us are going to end up not seeing to some degree that mixed precipitation, and of course all of us going to be seeing the winds. If there's one positive aspect of this storm though, it is that we are going to be, unlike the last couple of events, without really any sort of really terrible wind chills or anything absolutely frigid. The actual overnight low temperatures are probably not going to dip that far down below freezing. We're probably going to hover around the lower 20s, maybe a few of us even around the upper 30s, just barely where we need to be for that snowfall to be forming in the area. And even with winds as strong as they are, 60 to 70 miles per hour, wind chills will probably not go down further than the teens. Maybe the upper single digits for some of us here if we do manage to see temperatures get a little bit further down into the lower to middle 20s, but anything below 0 I think we can safely say is pretty much out of the question at this time. So -10, -20, -30 like we had seen at some points over the last couple of snowfall events, or at least immediately after, that will not be within the question here. So we'll want to bundle up if we do have to be out the door early tomorrow. Definitely dress warmly, but as for all of those extra layers, or for really keeping that sort of attire on for a couple of days or even weeks at a time, fortunately that is not going to be necessary, as temperatures should be at least in the upper 30s by tomorrow afternoon, maybe even the lower to middle 40s for a couple of us if we do manage to see that sunshine poking out a little bit sooner rather than later. So again, more benefits there for our area, more good news as we are again really luckily sort of dealing with a bit of a less pronounced storm system than what we've become used to over these past couple of weeks and months. It is a very unique event that we're seeing, but in terms of severity, it fortunately doesn't really compare to what we had seen back in January and even in parts of February as well. So 41 for tomorrow right now is our official forecast for Topeka. I think a little further to the north, we could end up seeing some areas stay below that mark in the 30s, but we should all be above freezing, and we should all see a pretty good amount of sunshine. So those two factors alone will allow for a pretty good amount of snowfall to be melting across the area. Gusts could still be up to around 50, maybe 60 miles per hour at times, at least in the morning hours. And that is going to be a bit of a chilly start to the day here, but it will be improving fairly quickly as we head towards the later morning hours into the early afternoon. And the blowing snow will be a little bit of an issue here before we do have temperatures kicked up enough to start that melting. So definitely want to be aware of that as we're heading out the door. But fortunately, the wind chills in the morning not going to be getting down further really than the teens across most of the area. And as we head towards the rest of this week, we are going to be rewarded with a bit of a rebound. It'll be a little slower. It's going to be sort of where we were at temperature-wise this past Saturday, somewhere in the lower 50s to upper 40s for Thursday and Friday, but lows should be recovering as well. We'll probably end up being above freezing, and by the end of this weekend, as we manage to spring forward here to end daylight savings, we are going to see a return into the 60s, and then the start of this upcoming week probably somewhere back in the 70s. So we'll have that repeat of what we had seen in this past couple of weeks at the end of February following that last snowstorm and Arctic plunge of temperatures. So that is some good news to look forward to here across the area, and it is a very good sign that we are going to see conditions recover a lot more quickly than what we had seen the past couple of days across our region. So definitely some good news in terms of that, something that is a key difference from what we had seen over the past couple of events and really for most of this winter. And with only, again, about 2 weeks left in the winter season here officially, things are going to be a bit we are going to be on the very tail end of any sort of additional threats of any winter weather. It's still possible. We could see some changes, but I think we are pretty confident that this should be the last major winter event here, or at least major amount of significant factors like the strong winds and that snowfall, or at least a combination of the two. We'll take another look here at the Skycam in Concordia, where those winds continue to increase. You can see those flags there in the background blowing and whipping around here, 50 to 60 mile per hour gusts at the moment, and even the camera now is starting to shake quite a bit here. Those cameras pretty sturdy and mounted in place, but even they do manage to start to sway a little bit. It does look like we can see there towards some of the lampposts as well, a little bit of shaking. It's quite a strong gust of wind here, or at least a very strong for the amount of time that we've seen those winds blowing. It's been going on there in Concordia for about 2 hours or so. There's a little bit of zoom in here where we can see it's a little hard to tell if it's whether it's the camera or the lamppost or maybe a little bit of both. But certainly a testament to just how strong these winds are, and what we can see under the light of that lamppost pretty much showing almost vertical or horizontal rainfall. And I think we just saw, that lamppost may have just lost power. So that is, again, something we are going to be talking about today. We usually don't see too many power outages when it comes to winter storms, even your typical blizzards, but these sort of wind speeds could definitely result in some fairly localized power outages. What we had back in January, it really didn't end up being too much of a blizzard itself. That classification that we use for blizzards is usually or is for sustained winds of around 35 miles per hour at times for, I believe, 3 hours at least, which we may not have actually achieved that back in January, but with all of that snow and, of course, with those temperatures dipping down as far as they were, it still was a significant winter storm at the very least. But interestingly enough, a blizzard technically does not need snow to be falling from the sky. It is stronger winds with the presence of snow on the ground, and it's really that sort of reduced visibility that we use as the main or visibility that we associate with the main definition of that sort of thing, or as the definition for blizzards, I should say. But yeah, we'll take another look here and pass it off to Jeremy.
Let me show the outage map. This is from Evergy, and you know, there's not a ton of outages, but there are enough. You know that it's certainly a problem. And the Evergy outage map, you know, it's got a big number. There are 5,000 customers that are out of power. But that's not just in northeast Kansas. That includes south central Kansas over into the KC metro. So there are quite a few folks that are without power, and it's really spread out. And the outage forecast product that we were showing, I'd say it's a pretty good representation of what it was representing. Was showing was that we would have isolated power outages. It's not a widespread thing. You're not seeing a whole lot of people in one area that are out. For example, right up here we've got, let's see, a couple folks there, fewer than 5, and then there's another one right here that's going to be fewer than 5 as well. So there are a couple of spots there. That would be the definition of isolated, but they're kind of patchy outages across northeast Kansas. Again, it's not a widespread thing, but you know, when the winds are gusting 50 to 70 miles per hour, you're going to have at least some power outages in the area. So that's what we're seeing. Again, it's not everybody. It's not a widespread thing, but if it's your house, then it's a problem. And my situation, you know, I knew I'd be here late at the office tonight, so made sure that my little ones are with somebody else tonight, so that they for sure have power. I don't want to be here wondering if they're warm, you know. So you know, that's something that I was planning ahead for myself. So checking out the wind gusts, 46 miles per hour in Topeka from the northwest. We now have those strong winds overspreading all of northeast Kansas. As a matter of fact, most of Kansas. Coffeyville is the only place I see that doesn't have a wind gust of at least 30. So we've got some spots that are well over that. Hutchinson 59. We had a gust a few minutes ago in Concordia of 64. But to all of northeast Kansas, the winds are very strong. This is the Capitol Federal Skycam in Manhattan from the Stormont Vale Manhattan campus. This camera's been going in and out a bit tonight, and I'm suspicious of it may be because of the wind. So I'm getting still images from it once in a while. But what I'm seeing is it's been snowing there for a while, and I don't see snow collecting on the parking lot, on the rocks, on the grass, and maybe it is, but I'm not seeing that yet. In Topeka, while we've seen snowflakes falling, it is definitely not accumulating here yet. If you look at the city lights downtown Topeka, that's the intersection of Kansas and 10th. I'll go ahead and zoom in. You can see the snow falling in the lights. But I've I've let folks in on this trick before that if you see me zoom in on a street light to show you the snow, that means it's not snowing very heavily. So if I have to zoom in to show it off, then it's not extreme by any means. So this is what we expected for the snow to begin around this time. It needs to intensify over the next couple of hours for the forecast to be accurate here. But certainly at this point, this is the beginning of the snow. If we're still looking at roadways that are clear in 3 hours, then I will be excited, and I will just go home right after the show and get a good rest. But most likely we'll have accumulation in a lot of spots as well later on tonight. Now, I don't have your report out of Marysville or that area. I'm curious to know if you're around Marysville, Marshall County, really anywhere, how much snow do you have on the ground? Do you have the roads covered in snow at this point around Marysville? Because I don't know that. The Can Drive map shows that the roads are snow covered there in Marysville, but I don't have any cameras there. I don't have any cameras. I don't have any KDOT cameras. I just don't have eyes in Marshall County. But the KDOT map is showing that area in Marshall County has significant coverage on the roads. I'll go ahead and bring it up here for you. Let me pass this one by. There, you can see that one's really windy, and Daniel was showing that a few minutes ago with the snow that's coming across sideways, and winds were gusting around 60 miles per hour. So here is the CanDrive map from candrive.org as we can see it. This is a KDOT product. All those roads that are blue or purple, they're not blue. All these purple roads, it says roadway is completely covered with snow, white out blowing snow. That's Blue Rapids. Right there, that's Highway 77. Here's Marysville. Road is completely snow covered with snow, white out blowing snow. And over here near Beatrice, it says the same thing. As a matter of fact, you know what? That's the kind of thing we need to go on TV with. Hey, Bridge, do we have an opportunity to go on without interrupting a show? Will you ask Denny that, please? And I'm not saying I have to go on like it's not a tornado emergency situation, but I'd like to go. Yeah, I do hear you now. Okay, thank you. He's asking now. So for you folks that are watching the stream, you can kind of hear my thinking on that. This is not something we want to interrupt somebody's favorite show, you know, especially if they're telling you who the bad guy is at the end, and say, hey, there's, you know, that wouldn't make any sense to rush on. It's not like a tornado where I have to tell you that immediately. In a situation like this, it's important. And it's important that we know that the roads are completely snow covered and they're reporting whiteout. That's a big deal. So I'd like to go on TV and mention that, and I want to do a app push as well on that. As a matter of fact, would you communicate that to Isaac? Do you know how to get that to him, that page? CanDrive?
Or CanDrive.
Yeah. Doesn't sound like we have a good time? Yeah. Oh, I'm not interrupting Donald Trump for that. No. No. Okay. I'm not interrupting Donald Trump or J.D. Vance. I'm not gonna do that. No. Okay. I'm gonna put that on the app. We're gonna send out a push notification on that. Okay. So let Isaac know that as well. Yep. All right. So what you're gonna watch me do here, folks in the live stream, is I'm going to send out a push notification on the WIBW weather app, and I can do that while I'm still live on here with you. It's just, you know, you're kind of seeing kind of a behind the scenes thing here of how we're doing it. So just bear with me here on this. But that's an urgent thing I think that we need to get out to people so they know it as soon as possible. But, you know, I'm not making some statement on politics here. I'm just saying I'm not going to interrupt that for this. If it was a TV show and we could interrupt a commercial, cover up a commercial, I would do that. All right, so let's send out this push notification. I need to zoom this in a little more so you can see it a little better. That's better. Better is good. Okay, here we go. Not sure if my audio will go through this thing or not. Probably should do it with my face on it. Yeah, I'm going to do it with my face on it to make sure the audio goes through. And now you're going to see my face here in a moment. There we go. Now we can send this update out. I sent a couple of these updates earlier in the evening, but I haven't done one since 5 p.m., so I need to do one of these anyway. So let's go ahead and send this out. All right, so the most important thing is that the roads are snow covered. All right, it is just about 8 p.m. Jeremy Goodwin here in the 13 First Alert Weather Center. I want to give you an update on some important information coming in on our blizzard. We do have the roads completely snow-packed with blowing snow. This is from candrive.org, and right there you'll see it says Highway 36 is completely snow-covered with white-out conditions, blowing snow. A little farther south in your Blue Rapids there, you've got Kansas 9 completely covered with snow, white-out blowing snow. Over to Beatty, up to Summerfield, same kind of thing. So this is the blizzard finally taking shape. in Marshall County. That's where we're seeing the worst of this so far, but the heavy snows continue to spread across parts of Pottawatomie County, Jackson, Nemaha, and heading into the Topeka area over the next couple of hours as well. So again, we have a full-on blizzard that has already hit parts of Marshall County. I expect this to continue to spread across the area throughout the evening. I have a full update on 13 News at 10. We're also live streaming WIBW.com.